you spoke about these leaked emails that everyone's reporting on. The ANC has said that they need to still check the veracity of these emails. Does the SACP believe that the emails are real? And then thirdly, you speak about the reconfiguring of the alliance. Can you just give us a little more on what that means? And are you saying that you don't think the ANC is strong enough to lead that alliance, and maybe one of the other alliance partners should be doing that? Thank you.
Thank you.
From Eyewitness News. I want to pick it up from the statement. First, I want to ask, are you satisfied with the President's response? You mentioned the book emails. Are you satisfied with his response to these emails? He said it's publications, and he hasn't indicated that you want government to really scrutinize and investigate if they're legit or not, and whether people should face consequences. Because I see also in the statement you're saying you're concerned that him and his son are actually playing a central role in auctioning off our national sovereignty. So are you satisfied with the response? My second question is on you say you're engaging with the COSATU and the broader trade, ANC stalwarts, civil rights organizations, but you don't say what exactly you're engaging on. Please can you give us something on that? What are you talking about? What is the engagement about? And my last two questions are on the state of capture report. You're saying it must be done and established without delay, but the President says he still needs to follow through his constitutional rights and take it on review. What are you suggesting must happen? Because the President says, I'm not against establishing that commission of inquiry. I just want to review it first. You want it now without delay. What must happen? And the Political Alliance Summit, does it start tomorrow? And what is the SACP going to be pushing for in that meeting? Thank you.
Thank you.
Can we not answer some of this?
Okay, yep, Greg Nicholson from the Daily Mail.
Okay.
So just to follow up on some of my colleagues'
I think I'll be the
questions.
same questions.
On the Commission of Inquiry that you're pushing for, can you just outline the scope that you'd like to see? Is it a sort of broad Commission of Inquiry into state capture, from outside of the Gupta family, or is it just on the Gupta family? How broad are we talking? What are you pushing for? And secondly, also on the reconfigured alliance talks, how would this look? What practically needs to be done, and how would it be done?
Thank you. Yes.
Shanti, I'm Baker Freelance. Okay, so my first question is with regards to the long-term strategy of the SACP, specifically since there have been calls from a number of quarters suggesting that the SACP should explore the modalities of contesting elections on its own. So there seems to be some examples of the tactics the SACP would like to engage in, such as street committees. But what capacity do you guys have to get that right, and do you think you'll be successful in any way? Are these things that you have tried before? My second question relates to whether there was unanimity in the discussions that led to the resolutions that come out of the CC, and related to that what the tenor of the debate was. For example, does it differ in the SACP from the way that NEC discussions are had, where there's rising authoritarianism? And my third question relates to the Gupta leaks and the calls for additional commission of inquiry. Have you spotted a silver bullet in any of the leaks yet? Because I haven't seen anything that could lead to prosecution, in my opinion.
Thank you.
We're answering.
Okay, that's the last question.
I'm Subhafegeta from Power FM. Picking up on your statement on the issue of the declaration of independence, or this issue of the Commission of Inquiry, you are saying as much as you want it to be thorough, but it must not be expanded so much that it's going to be rendered incapable of actually going and investigating the issue that the public envisaged. I just want to ask you, since the NEC said the Commission of Inquiry must be expanded to start from 1994, do you think the decision by the NEC is a deliberate attempt to ensure that this inquiry into state capture is actually squashed? Because obviously it could potentially render it incapable of actually coming to a conclusive decision about what is actually unfolding.
Okay, thank you very much. Let's take responses. The mic is
Yeah.
supposed to be when if you can bring it in the
Who will obviously be sharing. I may miss some, and then I'm sure my comrades here will come in. Jennifer, I think that the issue of Genevieve, my apologies. Our view, which we share with the ANC NEC, is that this commission must be established without any further delay. Now, we did not discuss the modalities of how that can be done in the Central Committee. But possibly, this matter requires direct clarity by the Constitutional Court. That what does one do in the instance where the president who appoints commission is also implicated or is conflicted? That will be one way of shortening this process, rather than going High Court, appeal, Supreme Court of Appeal, and it just goes on and on and on and on. The president has a right, or anybody who is implicated, to take it on judicial review. But on the issue of the commission, the Central Committee is calling for the fact that it must be established as a matter of agency. The Commission of Inquiry, the view of the Central Committee is that although we must not exclude other forms of state capture, but it mustn't be so wide that it never finishes its work. And the Central Committee is of the view, as we say, the most immediate threat that we are facing is these Gupta-linked parasitic networks. So that will have to be at the center of this. Doesn't mean that other things cannot be touched upon. But we must be careful that its terms of reference are not couched in such a manner that it will investigate all and everything, such that then we don't get to the bottom of the issues. Are emails genuine? Well, it's a bit difficult to answer that, although they do look genuine from some of the responses that we have gotten from some people who have not questioned the authenticity of the emails, but are trying to give us an explanation, of why did they do what they said. No one has come out categorically to say these emails are false. It's very interesting also, we're not seeing any other action being taken against the media that has been reporting about this. So we suppose that there will be processes to establish that, but they do look genuine. That is the view. Reconfiguration of the alliance, there are many dimensions to that. We can just talk about a few. For instance, the SACP has been of the view that the mode of functioning of the alliance since 1994 is now outdated. It's also subjected allies to lots of political abuse, even by factions in the ANC. For instance, we can't all be campaigning in election, but some key decisions are just simply made by one partner in the alliance. But also reconfiguration would include who is best placed now to lead the National Democratic Revolution. As things stand now, the ANC is moribund in terms of leading. What does that mean? Clearly you have to, as we say, we can't just go back to business as usual. The ANC has hopefully got to revitalize itself. If it's unable to revitalize itself, the SACP Central Committee is of the view that we have to explore building a range of popular forces on the ground. But even if the ANC is able to lead, we think it's a good thing to have a whole range of popular forces mobilized, both inside and outside the ANC. This is from the lessons we've learned as the SACP, which we think is in the interest of our democracy. Now, there's lots of implications about the role of the president and his son. It's a matter, actually, that we've raised this before, even inside the alliance. that this just doesn't look good. We don't want to be judges, hence the necessity of a judicial commission of inquiry to get into this. I might as well combine this with the question, is there a silver bullet? Maybe there will never be a silver bullet. But already, in terms of what is in the public now, even if half of it through these emails is true, it's very serious. In fact, the idea of a silent coup is not far-fetched in terms of what is in there. Well, we're not going to have an alliance summit. We're going to be having what is called an alliance political council, which was supposed to start this afternoon into tomorrow. But the ANC requested that we postpone it because it wants to engage with the process differently. So we are going to be further engaging as allies as to how we move forward on that. But what we want, in alliance discussions, without going into details, is that we want these issues that are facing the country to be confronted head-on. E.g., the toxic role of the Gupta family. It's very toxic, with collaboration from senior echelons of the state in our movement. We want to say, here's an item, how do we deal with this? And not dilly-dally, this thing of talking endlessly. That's what the country needs. We outlined some of the things, for instance, the Judicial Commission of Inquiry. We want that to be put on the table. How is that to be done, and how quickly that can be done? So that is the attitude of the, and that's the space that the Central Committee of the Communist Party is in now, that we can no longer just be fooling around when in fact the country is faced with what potentially is a very serious threat that threatens to take us back. And we don't want to go back, we want to go forward.
No, I think you've also answered Shanti's questions about what was the tenor by implication.
Yes.
Because I think the rest of us on the platform are happy to agree with everything that you've said and don't have much to add. But one of the questions that Shanti asked, I'm not sure why she did ask, is what was the tenor of our discussion, and is it the same as the kind of discussions that go on in the ANC NEC? We can't comment on what goes on in the ANC NEC, including you, who are in the NEC. But what we can say is that consistently since, and it was a point that we made in closing this last Central Committee of the 13th Congress of the SACP, is that this has been an extremely unified Central Committee and a very unified party. And I think the huge increase in numbers is an indication of the fact that large numbers of people, some of them active in the ANC, still active or disappointed with the ANC, are flocking into the South African Communist Party. And I think that's as a result of, one, our considerable unity, and the tenor of our discussions here at the CC were extremely unifying and confident in a situation, obviously, which is very difficult. We don't want to have swollen heads, and we don't want to overrate our capacities, but we are recognizing, and the feedback we're getting from the ANC caucus in Parliament, from the ANC stalwarts, ANC veterans, who are deeply concerned about the deterioration of the organization for which they fought, for which they went to jail, went into exile, this deep deterioration in terms of its moral gravitas, in terms of its political direction and so forth. A lot of them are turning to the Communist Party, faith-based formations, perhaps ironically, although it shouldn't be ironic, because I think that many of our own members are believers and active in churches and other religious formations, are also turning to the party as well, but recognizing that the party has unique possibilities and responsibilities. We are located as ANC members in the executive. Many of our members are key members in the administration of the state. We are in the ANC itself. We're in Parliament. but we're also out there as a unified organization in branches. How many branches, sorry?
Now 7,026.
7,026 ward-based, basically, branches throughout the country.
VD-based.
VD-based, I should
Yes.
say. Voting district-based. So that means that huge responsibilities vest with us, which are not narrowly communist responsibilities. They are about, in the first instance, defending our hard-won democracy and defending our constitution, a patriotic responsibility. That's what we're trying to suggest in the statement. So, interestingly, at our Imbizo of 2 weekends ago, among the delegations that stayed throughout the Imbizo was Business Leadership South Africa, for instance. Now, obviously, there are many differences between us and them, but what unites us is precisely a common concern around the threats to our democracy, to our constitutionality. And we recognize that we've got an important role in that, but we're not alone in defending that. But what we're additionally saying in the statement is that at the same time, while it's important to work with the widest range of forces who are deeply concerned about the defense of the Constitution, the defense of democracy, it's important at the same time not just to be stuck at that level. We've actually also got to organize the working class formations, popular formations, progressive formations as well, so that it's not just a return to business as usual, and therefore the continued reproduction of poverty, inequality, and unemployment. We've also got to defend constitutionality, defend democracy, but drive radical economic and social transformation, not in the perverted form that some are presenting it, but genuinely to transform the structural problems that we've got in the economy.
Is there nothing that points to criminality in the...
Well, I think that, yeah, I mean, that was one, are there silver, well, there's, I mean, there's, as Blade correctly says, we shouldn't be looking for a silver bullet. And in fact, we're being sprayed with a machine gun of bullets of all kinds. I mean, but I mean, there are some issues, for instance, which if the emails are authentic, and we don't have the capacity to assess whether they are or not, but everything points to them being authentic, and they confirm a pattern that we've been long speaking about. In any case, they deepen the picture, they add more details. But for instance, one cabinet minister is clearly, if the emails are to be believed, and surely they are, sharing top secret cabinet information with private bodies. Now, that's a criminal offence that carries a jail term. And so at the very least, while we're waiting for a judicial commission of inquiry, which must be set up immediately and so on, there are prosecutable cases which need to be pursued actively and so on. So we don't have to wait for a long process. Where there's been money laundering, if there's any indication of that, smuggling of money out of the country, and many of these emails are pointing to that, the Hawks and the NPA must wake up, must overcome their factionalism, and must drill down and really seriously address what are serious criminal activities. So we're not just waiting for a judicial commission of inquiry to say, move, deal with the rot that is setting in and setting.
Sorry.
Okay, let me open for the last round of questions or follow-ups. And we will thereafter close the press conference. 1, 2, 3, 4. Thank you. Okay. Oh, you want to follow up?
No, one of my questions in regards to, for example, the
Authoritarianism.
what part of the tactical approach is different from what was called for in 2005 to 2007?
Okay, we'll come over this one.
In relation to...
The SACP's clearly had like a strategic approach in terms of its role within the alliance, specifically with regards to ANC national conferences from 2005 as in the NGC in Pretoria. So my question is, what is the difference now? Like, what is the new tactical approach? For example, BLSA engaging with that seems new. The focus on voting districts is significant. But I'm interested in the mass movement part, because that clearly is the challenge that any non-ANC political formations face in South Africa, is that is where they don't have the support that the ANC has in the form of COSATU and the party, the alliance, and SANCO.
Thank you very much. I hope the follow-up is noted and should perhaps be broadened to democratic transformation as a whole and not be narrowed to ANC conference, but there will be responses.
Marika from Mark from Jack Rand FM. You touched on it now about the criminality, and I think Shanti also. The wording in your statements are also quite strong, and you're saying you want the hawks and everyone to wake up. But I mean, there's a real possibility. That's why you say it, because you have your doubts whether that will happen. And I mean, I know you guys don't like to be compared to other parties, and specifically we see the DA going to court a lot, or going to a police station and laying charges. What would it take? At which point would it be for you guys to go that you have to go and physically lay a charge on behalf of the country, on behalf of people? I mean, we see other parties doing it. Obviously, it's quite more difficult for you guys to do it. But what would it take if you feel that the hawks then don't do it? And then just on President Zuma, the call for him to be stepping down. What happens if we get to, obviously now it's not at that space, and we get to the elective, after the policy conference, and we get to the other conferences, and in that time, nothing changes. At what point do you step it up? And if you do, what is the step up? How do you drive this point home even more?
Thank you.
Clement Manatel again. Just a follow-up, but before that, I see in the statement, GS, you say dark threads are reportedly uttered in NEC meetings. I think you've already confirmed last week at COSATU Central Committee meeting that you have been threatened in NEC meetings. But so I wasn't sure about the word reportedly. I hope it doesn't then discredit what was said last week about you confirming the threats. We can still report that, right?
This is the Central Committee speaking, not...
Yes.
They have already been reported before the General Secretary addressed them.
And my question is, you say the President has every right, and you say you actually agree that the Constitutional Court must give guidance on how to deal with the state of capture report, especially with regards to the recommendations that the President is specifically unhappy about. So you do understand that if the Commission of Inquiry won't be established immediately, because the President wants to go through those processes, or are you advising the President that instead of going to the other courts, go straight to the Constitutional Court to get a clear guidance from the highest court? I just want to get if that's what you're suggesting, because you do support that there must be clarity on how to deal with those recommendations that he's not happy about. You are very much concerned about the state of the ANC and it being the alliance partner. And I'm just wondering, is pulling out of an alliance an option?
Thank you. Yes.
Thanks, Alex. My name is Sepo Ikenem from the SABC. On the axing of MEC Sambat Madoda, from the statement that we saw from the government of the Northwest and the SACP, it's contradictory because they said they spoke to top leaders of the ANC alliance about what led to that decision. Are you able to confirm whether they engaged you as a SACP about this axing? And now that you're saying that you are calling for the reversal of the axing, what kind of measures are there to engage them in terms of making sure that they rehire him to his initial position? And in terms of the upcoming Congress, is it going to be leadership election contest, and which members are being touted or who are available to contest the key positions within the leadership? Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, Greg Nicholson again from the Daily Maverick. I want to ask about the postponement of the Alliance Political Council. Can you elaborate on why the ANC requested a postponement? Is this concerning? Does it look like the ANC is perhaps trying to avoid a tough conversation on some of these issues? And what mechanisms, how does the ANC want to engage if they're not going to engage in this council?
Okay. Thank you very much. colleagues for beautiful questions. The more you ask, the more you are able to help us give greater clarity to the question. Much appreciated.
You want to start?
Shall I start with
Yeah.
Shanti? Let me start with Shanti's question, because she was inviting us to go into complex and dynamic tactical space. But I think the questions are important. And in particular, and when she revisited her question, I think that she also helped me to understand better what she was referring to. And essentially, I think that if I understand your question correctly, Shanti, you're saying, what's different now? What is different at this point with the point at which the Alliance found itself in back in 2005, in the lead up to the Polokwane conference and the 2008 recall of President Mbeki? And I think that's a good question, and it's an important question that the SACP itself needs to ask, because what was our role in all of that, and what were our expectations, hopes, and perhaps illusions in that process? Because if we don't ask those questions, we run the danger of stepping into potholes ourselves all over again. And we've been having a lot of debate and discussion about this matter, and we'll certainly carry that debate into our Congress. And therefore, without preempting too much of the discussion documents going into Congress, just to give a broad indication of the nature of the discussion, we're saying that obviously during the Mbeki period, certainly from the side of COSATU and the SACP, there were ongoing debates, discussions, and differences, particularly with what we characterized as a neoliberal turn in government. And then equally an excessive, in our view, over-centralization within the presidency, the state presidency. So the strategic political center during the Mbeki years became a technicist, managerialist, in our view, state presidential political center. At the expense of the great movement traditions, grassroots organizing and campaigning traditions of the ANC and of the movement that it led and should still be leading. And so we saw the Polokwane moment as being an opportunity to reaffirm the ANC as a movement, as the strategic political center, and the ANC movement, including therefore the Alliance, as the critical strategic political center. And we hope that that would result in getting the ANC back to its traditions, obviously in a new reality, because the other dimension that had happened, and which is now so much in evidence, is that insofar as the ANC has any campaigns or any activism, it's entirely based on elections every 5 years, or in by-elections in Motu or elsewhere. So there's a sudden flurry of T-shirts and pamphlets and posters and so on. But when it comes to working with street committees, working with civic organizations, working with faith-based organizations, progressive ones, and so on, all of those critical traditions had been run down quite seriously during the Mbeki years. And so when we went into Polokwane, we were joined with what we understood to be something of an unholy alliance, particularly with the ANC Youth League, then headed by Julius Malema, and others, who were also saying that the ANC must become the strategic political center. But what we've discovered is that what has now emerged as the Gupta network, this parasitic network, is that we were saying it, and COSATU was saying it, and many good comments in the ANC was making these calls, because we wanted to see the ANC return to being this movement on the ground, present in the struggles of ordinary people on the ground. But others had seen the ANC as the soft underbelly, as the route through patronage and money, to penetrating and then moving into boards of state-owned enterprises, into critical positions in government, and so forth. And so there was an apparent agreement about the ANC being the strategic political center along with its alliance. An apparent agreement at Polokwane, but with two very distinct agendas. And the one was basically to use the ANC through corruption and money and patronage to capture the state and to install, their own rent-seeking activities and behaviors. And that process began in the first Zuma administration, but it is now just taken off on steroids, in this second administration. So what are the lessons that we need to learn? We still think that, and those are the points we're reinforcing here. If there isn't an ANC, there needs to be something like an ANC. We still need a national democratic revolution. We still need a broad national democratic popular front of forces. The SACP has a role in that space, but we're not the only players. We want to be a communist party, and we have every right to be a communist voice within that process. But there are many other progressives, still in the ANC, in COSATU, in many other places, in social movements and so on, who share that broad national democratic perspective, but are deeply frustrated by the ANC's inability currently to lead that process. So that's why we're saying there needs to be a reconfiguration in the new realities of these progressive forces. We need to clean up the state. We still need a democratic state, an effective developmental state, absolutely essential as well. And we mustn't fall into cults of personality. I don't think that we did, but perhaps we came close to doing so, imagining that an individual would be the hero. So going into processes in the course of this year and forward, we need to be very clear as a party that we want to work with the widest range of forces, not least the ANC, that must revitalize itself. We hope to help that process of the ANC's revitalization, but it needs to be on the basis of principle and principled unity, and not just on affection for one or another individual, regardless of who that individual might be.
Yeah. Okay. We are of the view, the Central Committee was firmly of the view that if we are to address many of these challenges that face us, we need a combination of things to strengthen the democratic character of the state, and part of one of the ways which is very important of doing that is mass mobilization. That's why we welcome the fact that COSATU is planning a Section 77 strike for, amongst other things, protest against state capture. And of course, other campaigns that COSATU have been taking up on jobs, on comprehensive national security. We are clear as the SACP that we need intensified mobilization if we are to make sure, so that even if the hawks do not act, we are able to put pressure. We're also looking forward for even more parliamentary activism. We welcome the sort of activism now that we are seeing emerging strongly in Parliament on SABC, on ESCOM, and so on. Those are the things also that are important in order to ensure that things do change. They just don't get stuck somewhere. Clement, no, don't try and put us in a corner. This issue of threats, it doesn't start now. That's what we've been saying now. People have died in KZN and Django, Mzimkulu now, councillors are being killed mysteriously. Gliblands, It's unfortunate in KZN it has really turned violent. So threats have been there. So it's a continuation of these threats, that we have been informed by comrades, sometimes the language that gets used in structures, that people feel that, they need to put it out that if they don't get their way, certain things may actually happen, which is very unfortunate. Because once you start making physical threats, it means you've run out of ideas. people telling us that some people are saying, don't push us too far, I mean, really, that's not the language that we need to be using in a democratic South Africa.
Or the language of the innocent.
Yes, that's right. Look, the issue of the Northwest, the Premier of the Northwest did reach out to us as the officials that they've got some concerns. That's all they said. We were to start a discussion. That's what we thought, that they would like to start a discussion with us as the officials of the SACP. They never did that, and they've gone ahead and do the thing we have been warning about. Don't abuse the prerogative to a point, which is what they are doing. That's what they've done. In fact, it's an act of provocation on the SACP, what the Northwest Premier has done in this instance, It doesn't help to unify the alliance. We have said as the SACP, prerogative to appoint or remove is not an individual's prerogative. It's a movement's prerogative. What they've done has been to continue to violate this, which is what also has been causing immense problems inside the alliance. And we are saying this thing can't continue anymore. You ask us the question, is opting out of an alliance an option? No, as far as we are concerned. Because we still do need the alliance, but it can't continue functioning this way. It has got to change. This thing that is being done in the Northwest is unacceptable. We will not. That's why we are saying they must reverse it, and we can't continue having an alliance that's going to continue operating in this way. That I'm certain that the Congress of the SACP is going to say, enough and no more. But the alliance is needed. So we are still committed to this alliance. In any case, we were the architects of this alliance as the South African Communist Party. Yeah.
Just the following questions.
Yeah.
The Alliance Political
Elections
Council.
of SACP Congress or contest. The next one is postponement of the political council by the ANC. The last one is clarity from the Constitutional Court regarding a conflicted person appointing a commission.
I think on the ANC, it really would suggest it's better to ask the ANC, because we would not like to speak for the ANC as to why it requested that the political council be postponed. So it's better that you ask the ANC. That.
They also asked, is it concerning, and do you think from the South African Communist Party's perspective, is the ANC trying to run away from a difficult conversation?
No, we can't say that. You see, we can't say that. We can't say that.
You speak about the ANC in your statement, so I think it's fair for us to ask questions about the ANC since the SACP has raised it in this document.
No, but the two things are different. It's different from what the SACP is saying about the ANC and speaking on behalf of the ANC. The two things are different. They are very different. So we are saying, you are going to go and ask the ANC in any case. We know that. Then maybe what then you want is to say, well, but the SACP said this and the ANC said that. We think in this case, it's better that you go and ask the ANC so that they can answer for themselves
But perhaps we can affirm, one, we are concerned that it's been postponed, because that's the first dimension of the question. Secondly, we can confirm that we certainly intended to have a difficult and hard discussion at the Political Council. And when it happens, we will certainly ensure that. So that we don't want, it's pointless having an alliance political council that's just about niceties or pursues side issues that aren't, as our General Secretary has said, that does not go to the heart of the big crisis that is confronting the alliance, the ANC, and of course our country.
Yeah, just to add that one of the things that was concerning us was the fact that it was a last-minute request. You remember that the ANC just came from an NEC over the weekend, where a report was tabled to the extent that the Alliance Political Council will continue on Sunday and Monday. So we were to leave from here, basically straight to the Alliance Political Council and you will also know when Comrade Dumo was addressing and closing the COSATU Central Committee, he actually indicated that he has been in meetings since that NEC, and he continued into the COSATU CEC, into the SACP Central Committee, and was proceeding to the Alliance Political Council. Just at that end of that meeting of COSATU CC, then the ANC made this request. Obviously, the Central Committee is concerned about that. But what it has further said is to change the agenda of that meeting. And that's the point that the Central Committee has said, that instead of now going into a lengthy process of bilaterals, is not going to help us to respond to the current challenges that we face. In particular, for instance, how do we respond to the Guptas with new revelations, for instance, on the emails and so forth, including how do we respond to the president, let alone the fact that the ANC discussed this matter as the alliance. So these are the questions that we really feel that the Central Committee expressed deep concern that we will respond to the ANC to the extent that will require the Alliance Political Council. Of course, it's also necessary that it should have taken place since both the COSATU and the SACP have expressed their concern about the president and the fact that he should step down. And since then, we have not been able to meet as an alliance. So these were the key points of concern. But of course, the ANC will still have to give perhaps other reasons why they felt that it needs to be postponed, and then they need a process of bilaterals, interbilaterals. For the SACP Central Committee, it expressed serious concern on the fact that we've been having a lot of bilaterals. In March, we had 2 bilaterals. But it's not good enough just to hide on the bilaterals and not respond to the issues. The country is burning out of serious problems of corporate capture of the state, an instrument that we indicate in the statement that now takes away popular power of the people that they've given to our movement to lead society. So that is really concerning, and we want this Alliance Political Council. We'll engage the ANC, obviously. Proper will be mandated to indicate this to the Secretary General officially, but it's a matter that we cannot avoid because we had actually communicated that we were going to the Alliance Political Council, so did COSATU, so did the ANC, and all of a sudden we had to go back. So that's why we feel that perhaps we take you a little bit into confidence, but you still are allowed to go and ask the ANC's thing. But they didn't give us real reasons why there shouldn't be this Alliance Political Council.
Perhaps the media will get better answers.
On the issue of contest, our structures will now start discussing issues of leadership in the SACP, if I understand that was the question who asked that. But we do need to say this, that we are a democratic organization, we allow democratic contest. But over the last 2 congresses, we've actually achieved something unprecedented. We never elected because we had taken a decision to seek to unite ourselves as the party. So we encourage our structures to talk amongst themselves and reach consensus on who should be in the leadership of the SACP. That is the process also that they are undertaking, without saying that there can never be an election, but they are doing a similar kind of engagements to say, can we not try and find consensus? Partly that has helped the party to actually have the kind of unity that we are having. So I just thought, I will answer it. Now, I can't remember now what was the issue about the conflict of interest.
Just on the conflict of interest, the state of capture report by the public protector quotes the president clarifying in Parliament that the reason why he did not appoint a judicial commission of inquiry is because there were allegations against him. So the question is, should the president appoint a judicial commission of inquiry? What is the impact of that on what he has already said was the reason why he did not appoint? And then the SACP's proposition on the Constitutional Court to clarify that?
Yeah, I don't think that there's anything new that we need to say there, other than the fact that it's an awkward thing, because, in a way, maybe even us as participants, as drafters of the Constitution in the Constitutional Assembly, we never really anticipated a situation of this nature. That is why, because this is a constitutional matter. That is why it would be better to go straight to the Constitutional Court and seek a clarificatory order of what that means, in order not to delay. At the same time, we don't want to suppress the rights of anybody who wants to go to court to review the report and so on. But on the other hand, we are saying this commission, this Judicial Commission of Inquiry, is needed now, not tomorrow, given the seriousness of the issues that are facing this country around state capture.
Perhaps we can just add, but obviously the media know that better than us, that we might have had a role in drawing up the Constitution, but we're not constitutional lawyers. But obviously what the former public protector was trying to achieve was to say, yes, constitutionally the president appoints, but given the particular situation of a conflict of interest, the suggestion was that the selection, as opposed to the appointment, should be made by the Chief Justice. And that's obviously the matter that the President has brought to the courts. So that's one aspect. Then you will be aware that at least one senior counsel, and I believe that going towards the courts, it was not a question we answered, but we don't have the money to go to the courts like some other parties. There's obviously, one's aware of some parties and other forces going to the court to test the other suggestion that has been made by Advocate Hoffman, that the Constitution, where a president is unable to act for one reason or another, then the deputy president has the powers. If I'm not using the exact constitutional word, then a deputy president is required to exercise the powers of the president. So I don't know whether that will stand up in a court or not. But in short, there are numbers of legal arguments that might get us around this particular problem. But it's not just let's remind ourselves, it's also the dilemma of the ANC NEC, which has come out of its NEC saying, it's not just the SACP saying there must be the immediate establishment of an independent judicial inquiry, commission of inquiry into state capture. So how that's achieved is, perhaps best left to as we are saying, to those who understand the Constitution better than we do in detail. But it's not without prospects, at least one or another of those options.
Thank you very much. Let me take this opportunity to express our sincere gratitude for your presence and coverage of all our press conferences since we last closed our last National Congress in 2012. And your questions as well as interventions demonstrated increased clarity on the workings of the SACP.
What, amongst us or them?
No, they know how the SACP works. I mean, if you listen to Shanti and Marike, this side, they tell you the SACP works in this way. You don't go to court.
Okay.
You do this, what then happens? So that shows that there is, frequent interaction and mutual understanding of one another. We greatly appreciate that. Be rest assured, we are learning from you as well, because to a greater extent, you are our mirror. You are able to criticize us constructively and make no mistake, we do take you into account. Let's meet in the dining hall. And those who have not registered, please, it's a walking distance of about 3 minutes to the SACP HQ, where media registration is taking place for our National Congress. Even if you have not planned to be available for the Congress, better register, so that should plans change, you will still be having access. Thank you.
Don't forget to remind them to send their text before it's published for our approval. Thanks.
No, no.